right, so all that's unusable.
Yeah.
All right, ready?
Ready?
Yeah.
Should have been recorded.
Oh, he
We are.
was. We've been recording for 6 minutes and 58 seconds.
I do
There's
it all
usable
for the
stuff.
Anuki.
That's our Roberto button.
The Cowboys are a great team.
They're doing well right now.
I do it all for the Anuki.
It's the best sound clip ever.
That's funny.
a podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters.
Welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
I'm Dan.
I'm Jake.
What?
A
There's two
different
Jakes.
There's two Jakes tonight again. Roberto is also not available.
He's here in spirit.
He's here in spirit. Sign of the cross.
Surprised he didn't burst into flames.
He's just in Texas. We're joined again by Jake Cigelnik.
Cigelnik.
From
right.
Gold Eagle in Libertyville, one of the liquor stores we frequent. And tonight we're drinking the Gold Eagle
Say hour. I mean,
hour. Well, we did help
We did
pick
help
it.
pick it. You did.
We did help pick it.
You didn't do too much. You didn't help too much.
I didn't because I didn't pick this one. But it's the Whiskey Acres barrel pick. From when did we pick this? April of 2022. I think it was
Somewhere.
March, April,
April,
somewhere.
May. I
early
want to.
summer.
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is a phenomenal bottle. You still have several bottles
we do
left,
still
right?
have some, yeah.
So this is available. I highly recommend picking it up. It's barrel strength, which you're not going to find on the shelf from Whiskey Acres, other than a barrel pick.
And it's 123.
Yeah, it's a
It's up there.
pretty solid proof.
It
So yeah,
actually probably picked up proof because a lot of their stuff goes in at 120, 121. So
Does
yours
it?
actually went up in proof probably.
yeah. I mean, you're not going to go wrong with this bottle.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend listening to the last episode where we grilled Jake about being a liquor store owner. So if you're interested in that, listen to that episode. We also did a Knob Creek barrel pick, which is awesome. You're looking at hitting that the shelves sometime, probably in 2023.
Sometime early next year,
early
maybe
in
at the end of
2023.
this 2022, but most likely early
Yeah.
2023.
If there's one thing that we know that's going to be easy, is shipping's always very reliable.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, like we've talked at length about Whiskey Acres. We did an entire episode on them. So I don't know. I mean, Dan can talk a little bit to it because you're working there currently.
Part-time, just
Part-time.
for fun. I met the owner, Nick, at the or at the whiskey, at Gold Eagle's tasting event. And of course, I'm enjoying a retirement for a while. And I talked to him there, and I met him. We went down and did the Glass Gem pickup.
Yeah.
And I talked to him down there a little bit. And I said, "Hey, I'm just enjoying retirement right now. I'd love to help you out part-time. I'll donate some time." And they decided they'd actually pay me for some time. So I've been down there just cooking some mash and learning the ins and outs of whiskey making, which is fun. To learn a little more about my hobby, passion.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I get to see some of the stuff going on. And it all started from that day where we did the pick at Gold Eagle.
Cool. I did not know that, but that is very cool.
I knew who he was before then because an acquaintance of mine is friends with him. But it was nice to meet him there. And then we tried that. They gave us a sample of Glass Gem corn. And me and Jake went down, I think 2 weeks later
Yeah.
to pick it
That
up.
sample sold me for sure. It's so good.
Yeah.
And their thing is they got Dave Pickerel to help them out get started. And they went on the theory of their farmers, different grapes make different wine, different corn must make different whiskey. So they had the Glass Gem corn, they do a Bloody Butcher corn, they do a blue popcorn, they do a bunch of different types and varieties of corn, and they get a lot of different flavors out of whiskey.
Yeah.
So this is Whiskey Acres Bourbon barrel pick that we did. It is just a mash bill on their bourbon is If I screw this up, I'm gonna get in trouble. It is 75% corn, 15% wheat, 10% malted barley.
Correct.
which is atypical for a bourbon.
Yeah.
Usually you got some rye in there. And 75% is really high usually for a bourbon too, for corn content.
And just from a local distillery, I don't think there's any other wheated bourbons that I can think of from a local distillery.
Not from Illinois that I know of.
Yeah, I'll have to. I've never really asked why they decided to go wheat. I'm guessing because their big thing is they grow all their own grain on their farm right there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit better climate for wheat than rye.
Yeah.
Here. So maybe they decided to do it because of that. But they do make some great ryes too.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of their rye.
Yeah, it's a nice little place, but they came to Gold Eagle to do a tasting where we not only did tasting, but Jake surprised us with, there's 30, 40 people there to do is that the largest barrel pick you've ever done with a group?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. And it was, very cool. Took a little bit of work to set up because we needed full 750 milliliter samples to do the pick, and normally we get 100 milliliter, 200 milliliter little droplets from the barrels. But Nick was nice enough to pull full bottle samples, and it was really cool to get everyone involved, and not only get everyone involved, but everyone happened to like the same barrel. Maybe I'm jumping a little
Except
too
for
far
me.
ahead, but, no, there's a couple outliers, but it was pretty heavy. Everyone was on this one barrel, which to me shows that this is a good pick.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that was a long night because they did a tasting with all their main products. They gave us a sample of the Glass Gem corn, and then we also did a barrel pick, which was 4 bottles. We narrowed down to 2, and then we tasted 2 again.
Yeah.
So we drank a decent amount that night.
It was a lot of tasting, and
we enjoyed ourselves. We had fun, but yeah, we had a 2v2 bracket, and my favorite out of the 4 I tried did not make it to the second round.
Yeah, I think the one that I really liked made it to the final, but it was the one that ended up losing, I think.
Yeah. My second favorite one made it to the final and ended up being this as the barrel pick, and again, just kicked the shit out of your barrel.
Yeah.
What was so interesting about that is out of the 4 samples, 2 of them were both at 20 votes, and then the other 2 were way far behind.
Yeah.
But once we put them head to head in the final round, it was
incredible landslide.
95% of the votes on one side and 5% on the other side.
Yeah. Which is interesting because
they were even at the first round.
Yeah. They weren't very and these were not close in flavor profile either, So it was pretty interesting.
I think the biggest note that I picked up on this barrel was maple. Very maple forward, very sweet.
That maple and the little bit of a sweet note lingers for a long time too.
Yeah, and this is you could just pour this on some pancakes and instead of syrup, just pour some of this whiskey acres on there, and I think you'll be satisfied. But the other thing, one of the biggest things that I've noticed about this bottle too, and we're drinking right now a fresh crack. Just opened this bottle.
Yeah.
I think this one changes a lot, and mostly for the better after it gets some air in it and it breathes a little bit. Maybe it's because it's a younger whiskey and it's a very high proof for a younger whiskey.
Yeah.
But once this thing gets a little air, I think it opens up really nicely.
Yeah, and the second and third sip definitely open up all the flavors too. Because it is pretty hot at 120 point.
No, it's 123.
Oh, 123.
Yeah.
123 proof.
Yeah, 123 proof.
Yeah, so it's pretty hot.
But not as hot as you would expect from
No.
123.
Your first sip's always going to be a little spicy, but the second one it starts drinking more like 100 proof, and then the third is in that same kind of area
you get
where
all the mapley and
much
sweeter
smoother,
flavors come
much
through.
all the sweetness comes through. Yeah.
Yeah, the first sip does punch you a little bit up front.
Yeah.
But I have this bottle. Obviously, we were there. We picked it, so I wanted it.
Yeah.
So if you know of Gold Eagler in the northwest suburbs, make sure you follow them so that way you get the emails of when this stuff is available to come and pick up.
So what was I'll ask you guys a question. What was your thoughts about Whiskey Acres before this tasting?
I had not heard of them.
See, I had heard of them because my dad had been there before, but that's about it.
Okay. I mean, I had seen them on the shelves at different stores. Didn't know anything about them besides that it was local. So I just kind of texted Dan and was like, "Hey, this is a local distillery. Let's just go to this tasting." I think this was actually our first tasting at Gold Eagle. I think right.
Second, we did barrel first.
Oh yeah, you're right.
We did the barrel was the first one. This is the second one we did.
Which barrel was a blast.
Oh yeah.
So we were like, well, let's support a local distillery. So we signed up for that one. And Nick was amazing. Went through the whole spiel that we've gone through multiple times about.
Theirs was complete. Their spiel was a lot different. So Whiskey Acres, Nick and Jamie and Jim are the owners and they're farmers.
Yeah.
So most of them, when you go to these things, the same thing as when you go down to Kentucky and you do a tour, every tour sounds the exact same.
Right. Yeah.
This is how a bourbon is made. This is how a rye is. There, with them being farmers, they probably spend about 25 minutes talking about the corn.
Yeah.
And the pollination and things like that, which make me happy from my farm roots.
Yeah.
And
Dan was nerding out hardcore during that tasting.
I think I was the only person there that knew exactly what he was talking about the entire time, and everyone's like, "What the heck?" We were talking about corn sex. It's fun.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know was a thing until that night.
Yeah.
But no, they did a lot of that. Their fun story is they were farmers that decided they wanted to use their corn and their grain to make whiskey, so they grow all their own stuff and make all their own whiskey over their own grain. They didn't know how to make whiskey, so after a lot of hounding, they got Dave Pickerel, formerly of Makers, Whistle Pig, Blackened, probably about 30 other ones that at the end of his life that he helped them get started up and producing things. And Nick, the one owner, was the original distiller there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he's taught the ways of Dave Pickerel to a couple other people, and Rob's been there now for almost 6 years, I believe. But it's all, it says on the bottle, estate grown, estate raised, from seed to spirit. Everything's right there on their farm.
Yeah. I think the only thing Nick said they don't do is malt the barley, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everything else
He
is.
said they're working on that. Am I right?
They're gonna try and figure out a way to do that. They're getting it. They used to not get it done locally. I think now they're getting it at least done locally. But like their ryes, they don't use any malt. It's
Right.
enzymes are added.
Yeah.
It's 75% corn, 75% rye, 25% corn.
Yeah.
So that is just all their own grain, and then they add the enzymes to convert the starch.
But I mean, there's not many distilleries nationwide that can claim that their grain comes from their own farm.
And I think as a consumer, you have to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Especially where we're located. The farm and distillery is close to us.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely played into my thinking of really wanting to do a Whiskey Acres barrel pick.
Yeah.
It's very rare to find a grain to glass distillery. It's also rare to find a distillery that doesn't source any whiskey, all their own. And to have it be kind of in our backyard where you can hour drive, go visit it and see the whole operation is very, very cool.
Yeah. And like, it's neat because, when you think of whiskey, you think of Kentucky. There's a few other, monster distilleries that aren't in Kentucky, but
Pretty darn close.
when we got into whiskey, I was like, there's nowhere in Illinois that's making good whiskey,
Yeah.
But there are, which is cool, because it's not something that you would think, that would carry from, the bourbon capital of the world to the middle of farmland, Illinois, but it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I guess going back to my original question on what your thoughts were before this masterclass and barrel pick, because what I'm finding with a lot of our customers is after I'm recommending the Whiskey Acres barrel pick, a lot of them say, "Oh, Whiskey Acres, I'm not really a fan." And my next question is, well, when's the last time you tried a Whiskey Acres product, or have you tried this pick yet, or are you just already making up your mind? And most of people will say, yeah, well, it's been a couple of years since I've tried anything from Whiskey Acres.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the boat that I was into. 3 or 4 years ago, I think I tried my first Whiskey Acres, and it didn't really blow me away. But it's very cool to see how their stuff has improved in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that with a lot of smaller distilleries too. They're starting to hone in on whatever it is they're doing. Whether it's the recipes, the grains, how long they're aging it, what type of barrels they're using. A lot of these smaller distilleries are vastly improving in the last couple of years. And it takes time because this stuff has to age, so it's not like an overnight change that's going to happen.
My first bottle of Whiskey Acres was the regular bourbon, which I think is 94 proof.
I think it's a little bit lower than that. I can't remember.
I think it's lower.
Maybe 92 or something.
Something like that.
But Jenna's mom's friend went to, I think, Galena and saw it and got it for me for my birthday. Part of like a birthday basket. Yeah. So we opened it on, I want to say, Thanksgiving of last year. And I tried it, and it was extremely corn forward compared to other bourbons that I had tasted. And it was not bad. It was I enjoyed it because it was very different. But like I could see a lot of people being turned off from that amount of corn flavor. And it's
like very crafty.
Yes.
It tastes very crafty.
It's kind of like, it almost tastes like White Dog. It's like to a degree in the amount of corn that comes through, but then I tried the Bottle and Bond, which is a totally different story. It's much more rounded in flavor, and
they're a little bit higher proof.
Yeah.
Their normal straight bourbon is 87 proof.
87. Okay. Which the Bottled and Bond is obviously 100, which is a pretty drastic difference in proof. And it's, like I said, way more rounded. You get a lot more of the wheat comes through and kind of cuts that corn a little bit. And then we did these barrel strength picks, and I was like, wow, this is, a totally different level, dimension. It's I think it's still a lot of the corn flavor is there. But because of the proof, it's kind of like mutating into other flavors like the maple syrup and these kind of like.
Which why? Like, Dan, that's probably a good question for you. Why?
Yeah.
Do you get all that maple that I'm getting? Like, why,
I get
why
a
is
lot
there
of
a lot
maple.
of maple on Whiskey Acres?
And
they have a maple finish bourbon.
They do have a maple finish bourbon.
Yeah.
But this is not maple finished at all.
No.
Yeah, no, it's a toasted and charred barrel from a pretty good cooperage. I think a lot of it comes from there. I'm not sure. I mean, this is just normal yellow dent corn at this point. It's nothing special. So it's not like they're doing anything really unique on it. It's not your normal standard wheat. It's a red winter wheat that they put in there.
Okay, so that
so it's a little bit different wheat.
To do with it.
I don't know the breakdown of wheats, but it could be part of that as well. And when you talked about Jake, when you said something about, or both Jakes, about good whiskey coming out of Illinois, I was just thinking back. not too long ago, we did a blind taste at Gold Eagle, and it was Whiskey Acres versus something else, and Whiskey Acres won.
It was the rye bottled in bond.
Yeah.
Versus what was it up against?
It was what was it? We're gonna have to look that up because it was up against something good.
Yeah,
that
and
I
it
think would have beaten it.
was that the toasted event?
No, I don't think
No,
so.
it was
We're gonna have to pull up those results.
Yeah.
let me look for it.
But yeah, it was interesting because it didn't just win; it won pretty.
It was significant.
Yeah, and because your comment was, I guess Illinois does have a few good things.
Right.
I mean, we don't have many things in the state that are good. Like I say, I think with election season just finishing up, but we do have some good whiskey, and it's cool to see. And same thing like you said, Jake, too, is a couple of years ago, people were saying, well, they tried it a couple of years ago. I mean, it's a process with whiskey.
New Riff rye.
That's right.
That's what it was.
Oh yeah.
And that was kind of like right when we first got New Riff and had a lot of hype around it. And the New Riff rye is good. It's not a bad rye.
Well, and they're fairly new
they are
too.
fairly new. But it's also their own. They're not sourcing.
Right.
And it gets a lot of good feedback and good reviews. But let's see the actual results. Whiskey Acres won 20 votes to 12. So it was pretty one-sided.
Which, like, my favorite offering from Whiskey Acres is the bottled and bond rye. I think it's so good.
It is.
I mean, this barrel proof is fantastic, this is a really close second.
Special barrel. This is a good barrel that actually went in multiple blind tastings and came out on top. I don't think many people know this, but we actually got 4 samples from Whiskey Acres, and this was the barrel that I picked. And then we decided to do the master class, and then I told Nick, hey, you know what? Let's do a pick at the master class if possible.
Okay.
And I didn't even know that he was going to throw this barrel back in there at the master class.
Oh, okay.
I found this out like days after the master class, after we picked this, that was the same barrel that we had in the original samples that we got and picked.
That's cool.
So it won our original blind tasting. It won the first blind tasting that we did at the master class, and then it won in the third round when we double blinded the top 2 at the master class. And to throw this in there, Nick said that this was the barrel that the distiller picked and said this is the one that they're going to pick.
Okay.
So we lined up with his palate as
Nice.
well. So I think it's a pretty special barrel that we have here. And
Yeah.
after tasting it, I think it stands up.
Yeah, I mean, there's the depth of flavor in this is pretty fantastic. You get the maple. I would almost categorize this as like dessert, kind of like
desserty.
very sweet, very vanilla, and like almost like chocolate chip cookie kind of like tastes with that maple.
Now that you say that, I get a lot of like raw cookie dough flavors.
Yeah. It's excellent. I like it a lot.
It's and like I said, they grow. They're a small distillery that makes all their own stuff. Any small distillery that makes all their own stuff, it takes 4 years to see if you made something good.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you make tweaks, but it's going to take another 4 years to figure out if the tweaks were good.
Right.
But that being said, even though they're not that old, I've been down there where they've done a lot of single barrels, and every single barrel I've tried, I'm like, that's a damn good whiskey.
Yeah.
And just as we talk about this with being so mapley, they released a Distiller's Reserve that Nick picked a barrel of, and that is butterscotch. There's no maple in it, but it's very heavy butterscotch. Same right around 121 proof, I think that one was.
Okay.
But same mash bill, same exact everything, same style of barrel.
How many rick houses do they have?
So they now have 3. So their rick houses are interesting.
Are they close together?
No, not. I mean, compare like if you're thinking of like.
Are they all on the property?
They're on the property.
Yeah.
So Rick House 1 is an old Quonset farm building. So a Quonset farm building, think of a silo, a steel silo laid on its side,
Yeah.
big round building.
Semicircle type.
Yep. Half of us, half moon, or half circle.
Yeah.
And that's Rick House 1. Rick House 2 is a grain bin. Like an actual grain bin that you would store corn in. They don't store corn in it. Now they age whiskey in it. And they just built, not too many months ago, Rick House 3, which is another Quonset building, just like the first one.
Because they were just finishing that when we went there for the
Glass Gem corn.
Glass Gem.
And now I would say that Rick House probably has, I'd say probably 400, 500 barrels in it.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, they're filling it up quick.
It won't be
because there was nothing in there when we went.
Yeah, half of that Rick House is full. The other half is full of empty barrels.
Okay.
Which it's fun to see full barrels on one side, ones that need to get filled on the other side.
So they're new empty barrels?
Brand new empty barrels. They have, I think they said they have about a 6-month supply of barrels because, like everything right now, there's shortages everywhere, and barrels are getting hard.
Commodity.
The other thing I read as well is it's not just the barrels, but the head glue
in the oak tree too.
The head glue to get the barrels to seal tight is there's a shortage on head glue. So, they decided they want to get a bunch in ahead of time because smart businesses plan when things are tight, get as much as, or when supply is limited, get as much as you can to make sure you have what you need. But it's a cool place. If you're in Northern Illinois, Central Illinois, make the venture to DeKalb. They're open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They got a nice visitor center there.
They usually have some kind of live music and a food truck. So
I know they have a spot inside for small live music. I'm not sure. I'm sure they'll still do food trucks in the winter, but outside they got a big patio. That's not going to be.
Yeah.
Right now they still have some nice solo fire pits out there. The smokeless fire pits, but it's going to be.
It's getting chilly.
It's going to be below freezing this weekend coming up, so I don't think that many people will be sitting outside.
Yeah.
But we talked about it. We did our local series. Local distillers are always fun to go to because they're not very big, so everyone that works there is working there because they love it.
Right.
It's a huge passion for everybody there. I've met the majority of people that work there now, and no one's really there that often because they're only really open on the weekends. But everyone loves what they're doing, and it's fun, and they're making good stuff. I mean, they knocked off New Riff, who probably has a lot more money behind them than what Whiskey Acres does.
Yeah, because New Riff is Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
They're Kentucky, but they're like way to the east. They're right on the border of Ohio.
Okay.
So kind of
they're independent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the time being.
Yeah. And I mean, they're also like props to them because they're not really sourcing. OKI is like their MGP brand, but everything that's been in a New Riff bottle is their own distillate. They waited the 4 years before they bottled anything.
Okay.
So they're also doing things I guess you could say the right way.
So they're doing OKI.
OKI, is not really going to be a thing anymore.
Okay.
They're kind of fading away from that. But that was like their MGP brand.
Got it. Okay.
And now they have enough whiskey that's 4 or 5 years where everything's just going to be in a New Riff bottle now.
Huh, interesting. Okay.
So, yeah.
And New Riff, they don't do gins or vodkas.
No.
Right.
And they pride themselves on only doing whiskey.
Yeah.
Which is difficult. Whiskey Acres does a vodka, but I don't think they haven't made vodka in a while.
Really?
I don't know if they're going to continue it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a corn vodka?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm guessing, but I don't know.
I would assume so, but
yeah, it's for sure very difficult to start a distillery just on whiskey
because you're not making any money for 4 years.
They're also farmers, so they're making money on farming.
Yeah.
But if you were to just go start a distillery out of nothing, like you probably would need to have a vodka or a gin.
You have to do some kind of clear spirit to make money, for 4 years,
right.
at least.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go if you use smaller barrels, you can push stuff out in 2 or 3 years.
Or you're sourcing.
Or
like I don't know, make some White Dog margaritas because those are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Get a cool tap room and get some good food in there and serve some White Dog margaritas.
Mm-hmm.
Good business model, I should say. I should start that.
Hey, you guys got the nice bar there now.
We do, yeah.
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 I will say one of the coolest things I've seen was when you did your bar with all the whiskey staves and then from your barrel picks.
So my wife and I did a bar in our basement, and when I saw yours, we did ours like
A year ago?
About
and you
a
want
year
to change
ago.
it already?
I saw the whiskey saves, and I was like, "Damn it! Why didn't I think of that?"
See if it's something that you can add on there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a nice touch for sure.
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other small distilleries? Obviously, Whiskey Acres, even though it's local, they're still small. What other small distilleries have you done barrel picks with?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Like Starlight is kind of small, right?
Yes and no.
I mean, on the higher end of small.
I mean, they're small as in they recently started distilling within the last like 10 years, and they've expanded tremendously. But they're also 7th generation farmers.
Okay.
So I guess they're kind of like Whiskey Acres, but on a bigger scale.
Yeah, yeah.
But as far as distilling goes, yeah, they're very small, but they have they've grown a ton. They went from like 1 rick house to 4 now, I think they're at, and like the newer ones are like many times bigger than the original rick houses. They just bought a whole new still. So I think they're now considered like one of the bigger players.
Okay.
But yeah, when we started doing picks from them, they were definitely Whiskey Acres size.
Yeah, yeah.
On a smaller scale.
But they're Indiana, right?
Indiana, about 45 minutes from Louisville, so almost Kentucky, but
Yeah. Which they're probably on the same limestone water as Kentucky, right?
Maybe I would think. Off the top of my head, I don't know for sure about that.
So one myth we can bust is, yes, Kentucky has got a big limestone aquifer in it, but it's not the only limestone aquifer.
No.
In the U.S. That was one of the things with Whiskey Acres is they had their water tested, and it came back chemically the exact same analysis as the limestone aquifer down in Kentucky.
Yeah.
So it's a limestone's going to produce the best water. It has a lot of filtration. Where I'm from in Northwest Illinois, it's very heavy sandstone, so it's high in iron, which is not good for whiskey.
Yeah. That's the benefit of limestone is that you don't have to do any kind of secondary filtration to the water. So you can basically just put tap water into your whiskey, where like Dan said, if you're not on limestone, there's all kinds of other like metals and shit in there that like really screws up with the flavors. It messes with the
flavors and messes with fermentation. So iron and yeast are not friends.
Yeah. Right.
As we all know.
Because we all know.
But no, that's a very good point, because anyone who's from Kentucky or pretty much any Kentucky distiller, the first thing they talk about on their tour is the water and the limestone that they have there. And this was the perfect spot for a distillery because there's a river that runs right through, and it's the best water in Kentucky and best water in the U.S.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is too is like the main reason why a lot of these places are on where creeks are running through is not just because they got good drinking water there, but you need a supply of water to cool everything down as you're distilling, as you're mashing. So you need a stream of water, and that's what the moonshiners used.
Right, because like a lot of these places were started in the late 1800s or so, and like you needed some form of running water, to like, do your distilling.
Yeah.
So a lot of that's just kind of like legacy type stuff.
Yeah.
I saw a meme today actually that was like there's like a group on one side and one guy standing on one side, and the one guy says all bourbon is from Kentucky. And then it shows the group and the guy's like yeah. That's like, so other places have really good bourbon too.
Yeah, it's the amazing thing is how much water it actually takes to make whiskey. So I mean, in a normal mash, you're going to use 2 parts water, 1 part grain, which at the end of the day is not a ton. I mean, if you're doing, let's say, 1,000 1,000 pounds of grain, 500 gallons of water, you'll get close to a barrel out of that. You'll get close to 53 gallons. But it's not just that. It's the water to cool down the mash after you're done cooking.
Yeah.
It's the water to to run through the condenser to convert your steam into liquid again to get the alcohol down into the collection area. It takes a lot of water. And
yeah, well, it's a lot of the distilleries that are not on a river or a creek or whatever are finding ways to kind of like recycle that water, which is pretty cool because if you're running on a limited supply or at least like a non like river or creek type of supply of water,
a non-river or creek.
yeah, I don't know. What do you want,
Jake? You can give him shit. Like,
non-body of water. What do you want me to say?
Well, we're a barrel picking plus the whiskey.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any shit to give here.
But I mean, you gotta stretch as much as you can.
Yeah.
That kind of leads into the other cool thing about Whiskey Acres is they do reclaim a lot of their water. They are, I think, completely energy independent or near energy independent.
Basically energy independent. With their solar
with
panels.
solar panels and it's pretty cool to see someone putting in the effort to be like truly independent from the entire system.
No, absolutely. And
like it's
especially
cool.
from, again, somebody that's local near us.
Yeah.
Grain to glass. That's something that you don't really see too often in this industry, for sure. Yeah, that'd be an interesting stat to know how many distilleries or what percentage of bourbon that's out there is actually grain to glass from the same distillery.
Right.
And
it's got to be low.
Minuscule.
Yeah.
Because all these big distilleries that produce 90% of the bourbon that's out there, most of them, they're not grain to glass.
Yeah. Buffalo Trace doesn't have a farm.
No. It doesn't have a farm. They have, farmers that they use and probably maybe have exclusive rights to their grains. Because, it's not like their backyard where they're going and growing everything.
Yeah. But I mean, like, Kentucky isn't even necessarily like corn country either, They're sourcing all that corn from Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska anyway, so it's it's interesting.
Yeah. No, it's a cool place, and the fact that there's something unique going on there when I don't know. I mean, we're in the age of craft distilleries right now. It's craft bourbon or craft beer was 10 years ago. It's craft distilleries right now.
Yeah, beer is so 2010.
How many people tried to get people like Dave Pickerel, Jim Rutledge to help them out, and the fact that Dave picked these guys to help kind of shows that he was pretty passionate about what they were doing as well. So
yeah,
they got that cool link because there's so many people that would have killed to have.
Oh yeah,
Dave helped them out, and they got lucky. So
yeah, and I wish we had Nick here to go into some baby making corn facts.
Yeah.
You're that drunk you want to know about corn sex again?
Dan knows all about that.
I can tell you about corn sex.
Go into it. I mean, because if you do know, because I mean that was when he was speaking at the master class, like something that I would never have thought of.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Like what corn?
Yeah, so
I'm gonna go to the bathroom because I gotta go to the bathroom.
Their big thing right now is they just picked their first hybrid that they created. So normally most corn is yellow dent corn, which is the normal. When you think of corn,
so
it's a yellow
when
kernel.
You say hybrid, you mean they planted certain corns near each other.
So normally,
pollinated and
they have sex.
Different corn.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So normally it's yellow dent corn is what they are. There's like we talked about. They do Bloody Butcher. Other people do Bloody Butcher. They do blue popcorn. Some other people are doing blue popcorn. But they wanted to find certain starch and protein characteristics out of their normal corn that they use for their normal bourbon. And so what they did was they said, we like this style and variety corn. We're going to plant it next to this style and variety corn. When corn grows, it gets tassel on the top. And that's basically like when you think of a flower and the pollen and everything, they put them really close. So that way they cross-pollinate with each other. basically the different sperms, the different eggs in normal terms, cross-pollinate, and then you get a new seed plant that has both characteristics of the yellow dent corn and the other style of corn that they used. And then once you have that seed, you can grow that seed and get it to harvest. And then once they did that, they've been working on this for a while. They take a breakdown to see the different types of proteins, see the different types of starches. They have their little small whiskey making kits to make small batches to see what came out. And once they finally found a cross-pollinated variety they liked, they decided, hey, this is going to be our seed corn. This is what we're going to start growing. So they now have that variety figured out.
So now sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
How do they figure out, all right, this is what we want to grow? Because they don't have time to distill and let it age.
No, so they don't. They can do small runs out of small stills, and you can smell what the spirit is.
They're going off like the white dog.
Right, they're going off the white dog. I mean, I think, what did he say? Their test still is less than a liter, and you can just add like the little Okanagan spirals in there and get it to age a little bit and see how it tastes after a few weeks.
And you can kind of get a general.
They can get a general idea. I mean, a master distiller is a master distiller for a reason. They can smell the white dog. Right. They know what characteristics it's going to have.
But we've had white dog that's like, you can tell that no matter what happens to this, it's going to be good, you know? Yeah. Like, the Barnstormer's rye was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
The regular white distillate was like incredible.
Have you had Maker's white dog?
No.
So good. Unreal.
That's all we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just like one that like has stood out to me. Fearless is very good white dog. But yeah, no, go back to the corn thing.
Well, I know they I don't know I don't want to get into too many details or anything, and I don't know all the specifics and ins and outs, but they found this. They were happy with it when they ran some tests on it, and I'm sure a lot of it too was just doing the breakdown of the different types of starches and the different types of proteins, different
Which
strains.
Is that's only a farmer.
Yeah,
can know. And
that's more agri-science than it is whiskey science.
Right.
That's knowing. Well, it's a combination of both, because they know what they get out of normal yellow dent corn. They know how that changes when you break it down and break the starches down. So they knew what they were looking for, and they found something they were happy with on the chemistry side. They did a small run of it, and they said this is the one they want to do, and this is their first harvest of it. So I think they said their plan for that was early next year to start distilling it. So
this is the hybrid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they've
done how many different experimental runs? 4?
Oh, lots.
5?
I'm sure lots.
I think because we tried
just 4 or 5 in the last year or two.
Because like the blue popcorn technically is one.
Well, those aren't hybrids. Those are
no, right.
Yeah. So we're just talking
but
about
that's a non-standard. The Bloody Butcher. We tried the Oaxacan one at the tasting, I think, which was incredible. That one was pretty good too.
The problem with that is it's a Mexican corn. And
it's hard to grow here, right?
Yeah.
Illinois and Mexico don't have similar climates. They're a little different.
Yeah.
If we had Roberto would tell us
didn't he say that they were going to try and do it again though?
Yeah. Yep. They
make it like a semi-regular kind of release.
I think when Nick was at the tasting, he said they did it, and they hated it because it was so much work. And then they tried the spirit that came out of it, and
it was so good.
They're like, "Shit, we got to figure this out now."
Yeah.
But no, it's cool. It's stuff you don't think about.
You definitely don't.
Yeah.
And with how many distilleries are out there and how many people are producing whiskey now, I don't know. I think you have to think that that's something in the next couple of years that is going to become more of a thing. Like, what kind of corn did you use?
But I think we're already starting to see like the first trickles of that from
Whiskey Acres. They do such a good job of doing all these different corn releases and showing like how the same mash bill and everything can be the same, and it just changes so much just based on your starting.
And
crop.
what's the other funny thing is there's been a couple other people that have done this and done some releases that are bigger than Whiskey Acres, but their mash bill is low in corn. So it's like your whole thing is you want to showcase how this corn works, and you're only going to use 60% corn in your mash bill. Like, why are you trying to hide it? Did it not come out as good as you wanted it to, or were you just afraid of what public reaction was going to be? Where that's where they're hanging their hat on is
Right.
These are the things that really make whiskey taste different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can only do so many things with normal corn, normal grains, normal barrels, and you just put a different name on it, and now it's going to sell for $300.
Yeah.
They're not trying to do that. They're trying to legitimately dive in and find some new ways to make whiskey with some cool corn.
Yeah. I mean, Nick gave us what the percentage of like their total crop that they
8%.
allocate to experiments, basically.
Well, 8% of their
8% is their total
Yep.
whiskey usage, and a certain portion of that is their like experiments for the year, right?
Yep.
8% of their total
Acreage.
corn is
8%
for their
of
own
they have
whiskey?
they have about 2,000 acres. They said, and about 8% of the 2,000 acres is used for the distillery.
And that's another cool point to add in there because they get first dibs, obviously, on what corn they want to use for their own whiskeys. So they're picking the best of the best corn, and he made that a point at the tasting that it really makes a difference on.
Well, and the level of technology, to dive into the nerd science of farming a little bit, I work in a hydraulics company that specializes in a lot of this agriculture hydraulic stuff. So, and then Dan's obviously got farming experience. The level of like pinpoint precision that they have now in like these harvesters is insane. And they're able to document like the down to like inches of rainfall that certain areas of the crop get versus other areas, so they know which ones are going to be the best of the best out of the total acreage. So they're able to actually like hand select basically those parts that are like, this is going to be like the premium corn of our entire crop.
Kind of like a Buffalo Trace, where they just know like sixth floor corner, this is going to be our best Eagle Rare barrels.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a good point because it definitely starts with the crops and the grains that you're using.
Yep.
To be able to pick out the best of your own crops and use that to distill and then send the rest off to whoever who cares
Which
where
like
it goes.
most distilleries don't get that luxury.
don't.
You're gonna get what corn you get.
And most of them do get to pick, like they will get a shipment, and some of them will say no to an entire shipment, but they don't have the data on where that came from, what exactly. It wasn't selected for that distillery specifically, whereas Whiskey Acres gets to monitor the entire life of the corn, and then also know all the data on the best of the best pockets of their farm. So,
it's fun. I've enjoyed my time working there. It's been fun to learn more about them. It's been fun to learn more about the whiskey making process. I mean, their stuff keeps getting better and better. Not that it was not good at first.
It's been getting a lot better.
I mean, well, that's the nature of a craft kind of
Mm-hmm.
distillery anyway, is that like you're gonna, like Dan said earlier, you're gonna make tweaks with every batch, and it's just gonna continue to get better.
It's gonna take time to see how those tweaks change it. But that's why you should never ever count out a distillery, especially if you haven't tasted anything from them in the last couple of years, because the stuff does change a lot, especially smaller distilleries. Like sometimes it gets worse, but most of the time, if they're doing it the right way, it'll just get better.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed with Whiskey Acres is every year whatever they release gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
So,
But nothing they've released is better than the Gold Eagle barrel pick. We can confidently say that the best thing they've done is what's that Jake's store. So go to Gold Eagle and pick up one of the few remaining bottles of Whiskey Acres barrel.
Yeah, there's still probably a few cases left.
We still have about half the barrel left.
Okay.
It's being a younger whiskey, it's a little higher yield. So I think
Yeah.
this one was like a 240 or 50 bottle yield.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So just in a month or two, we've gone through about half of it. But I think once people try this and word gets around, it's going to start going, sooner rather than later. And we have heard a lot of really good feedback.
Yeah.
And the coolest piece of feedback that I've heard about this is I can't even tell you how many people have told me, I'm not a Whiskey Acres fan, but I really like this pick. And also most of those people probably haven't had much Whiskey Acres in the last couple of years. So they haven't been able to experience that this pick is really good, but also their whiskey is getting a lot better than it was 2, 3, 4 years ago.
And this is one, the price point is there too. It's even if you can't necessarily handle the proof, this is
under $60 for a 123 proof.
Yeah. And this would make a great old fashioned.
It makes a great old fashioned, and I normally will only drink whiskey neat, and I still love this whiskey and will only drink this whiskey neat, but I will admit it opens up really nice with a couple drops of water.
Yeah.
Becomes a lot more approachable for the average whiskey drinker who doesn't necessarily like 123 proof.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would classify this as a particularly versatile bottle. Mostly because those sweet notes are so pronounced,
maple syrupy notes,
so deep. Even if you do cut it, I feel like those will really still shine through.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, Jake, thanks again for joining us and filling in for Roberto.
Yeah.
Where can people find Gold Eagle?
Instagram, Facebook. Those are the best two places to catch up. And obviously the stores in Libertyville, Illinois. Come and see us. We've got a nice bar you can try any of our picks at, or some of the harder to find whiskeys. And then most of the stuff that we have on the bar is also available to purchase on the way out. So, yeah, Gold Eagle Wine on Instagram, Gold Eagle Wine on Facebook, and 255 Peterson Road in Libertyville, Illinois.
Yeah, you can.
Jake, what's your home address?
I'm not going to get that. You can follow Bourbon Matters at Bourbon Matters on Instagram. Search for Bourbon Matters on Facebook. You can find us at Bourbon Matters on YouTube, which apparently YouTube is doing handles now. So we are at Bourbon Matters on YouTube. I don't know what they're trying to do with that, but they're doing that.
Maybe they're bringing Google Plus back.
I don't know. Well, it seems like they're trying to do like a post type thing. Like they're trying to turn YouTube into like a social media thing.
They're going after Elon.
It could be. So anyway, find us on YouTube. Click the notification bell. Subscribe. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Make sure you share it. Make sure you like it, subscribe, all that fun stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've done 2 barrel picks basically today because we did 2 episodes. It's been a good day. I gotta go make more whiskey tomorrow.
Yeah.
I gotta go sell more whiskey tomorrow.
I gotta go to work.
All right.
My job's not as fun as yours.
All right.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.